Hey there, welcome to the Try podcast, in which my co-host and I try to talk about three things in particular: video games, movies, TV shows, and possibly a whole bunch of other things. I'm Alex, and the person you're about to hear sharing a fairly controversial opinion of his is the one called Mayhew. It's like Matthew, but replace the two T's with a Y. So we wanted our first episode to be about something kind of appropriate. So in the moment, we figured we'd start talking about games which we love that are generally perceived by others to be bad. Or at least games which we perceive to be perceived by others to be bad. Like this podcast could potentially end up being. However, when that discussion proved somewhat fruitless, we decided instead to talk about the opposite, games we don't like that others commonly do. What you're about to listen to is a discussion concerning one of those games. But first, a brief introduction to the two of us and a little bit about what you can expect from this podcast going forward. We hope you enjoy it, and please feel free to contribute to the conversation. We're probably going to piss a couple of you off, so take all of this with a pinch of salt. So, a little bit about us. We're good friends.
Yeah.
Some might say we're best friends.
Some might say.
Yeah, I'd say we're best friends.
I'd say you also say we're best friends.
Ouch.
Love you, Alex.
I love you too. We grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
We've known each other since we were nary a year old.
Yeah, we were nary a year old.
Does nary mean what I think it means?
I think you use it correctly.
We were nary a year old.
I was also nary a year old.
And yeah, we've just been together, inseparable, really.
Yeah, playing together like little nary a year olds wouldn't.
Yes, but ever since,
even though we didn't have the social skills, it just somehow clicked.
We still don't have the social skills,
no.
And we still click.
Yes, somehow.
And yeah, we have interesting conversations all the time.
Yes, we do.
They're interesting,
and because
to us.
we don't have social skills, we assume that the conversations are interesting.
Yes,
because we think they're interesting. But who knows?
I very frequently am thinking to myself, this is some good shit. You know, this is stuff that people should hear.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
There are so many idiots talking on the internet. We might as well join them.
Exactly. We're just smarter idiots.
Yeah.
And so that's what we thought we'd do. We love video games, love movies, always have.
All that nerd
always
shit.
Will. We were like nerds before it became cool.
Yeah,
you know,
just by nature.
You more than me. Like
I'm so nerdy.
You're a huge nerd.
I'm the biggest nerd.
You're just such a nerd. And so yeah, we just wanted to talk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's the brains. I'm you're
the tall.
I'm just tall. That's like my trait. He's very smart.
You're the artiste. And the person who's editing the podcast,
yeah,
and everything.
Yeah.
I'm just a mouth.
He's just
a mouth on a mic.
That's how I always think of you.
Even without a mic.
Just a mouth.
I'm just a mouth. For your pleasure. Back to the thing I was actually going to talk about. KotOR 2. Well, maybe first I should say KotOR 1. I really liked KotOR 1. It was a childhood game for both of us.
It was.
Yeah, and yeah, I love that game. It's probably not the first RPG I played. I can't remember if I played Fable first.
No, I don't think so.
No, I played KotOR. KotOR 1 was the first RPG I played.
Or at least
I think
it was
that shows my age, but yeah.
It was the first that you got really into.
Yeah. Let's just say I can't remember there being others.
Yeah.
KotOR 1 was probably the first RPG I played. I didn't play any of the classic, pre-KotOR RPGs. And I absolutely loved it. I was then and still am, even though I'm a bit burnt out, a really big Star Wars fan, so that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I can say about KotOR is I never really loved the gameplay. Like, I do have one confession to make about KotOR 1. I have tried to replay it recently.
On your phone?
Well, on my phone, on the computer, before it stopped working on Windows 10. I cannot finish the game again, it seems.
Wow. Is it the gameplay then?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I have played enough of that game. I just want something new. But part of it is the gameplay, even though the game is pretty easy. So it's not like an unbearable challenge that I, don't care to overcome. It's just, the game is a bit stale to play physically. I still love the characters and the story and everything. So I think that's probably what I'll talk about most in a moment when I'm talking about another game. But so I haven't been able to finish recently, but I guess I still love the game, probably from nostalgia. And this may affect my judgment of the next game I'm going to talk about, KotOR 2. So when I started playing this game, do you want to get a word in?
Well, I just wanted to say, KotOR 2 for me, I was always a bit unsure about. This is back in the day before we were super into the internet. We played RuneScape and stuff like that, but we weren't there was nothing to follow really.
Yeah.
Or that we knew about. I always felt a bit it was a bit complicated. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know what to feel about the game.
I think I have some things to say that are pretty similar to that. So the reason I'm talking about this, and the reason it's been on my mind a lot, is because people really love this game. Oh, I don't know if I've said this explicitly. Yes, I do not like KotOR 2 at all. I got all the way to the final boss, and because it was a little bit of a challenge, I didn't even bother. I realized at some point, it was a challenge for me. Maybe it was just my particular build. Maybe I was playing stupid.
When was this?
2 years ago, maybe.
Is that when you first played it?
That's when I first played it, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is, well beyond my nostalgia period. Yeah. I think, and I'll talk about it in more detail, I don't think it was a nostalgia thing that was stopping me from enjoying this. And anyway, so I didn't bother finishing it because I realized I don't actually care how this game ends, because at that point I realized I didn't actually like the game as a whole. Yeah, and I know that a lot of people love it. So if you don't like it, I don't know if many people say this out loud, but this is how I felt. I felt like them saying, oh, this one's intellectual, so if you don't like it, you're just dumb. That's,
how a lot of people on the internet come across when defending games.
Yeah.
Or anything.
Yeah, it's more nuanced, and it does try to delve more in philosophy. I just think it's a badly designed game. So, when I started playing KotOR 2, right, I was enjoying it quite a bit. I mean, the first area in the game, that area was way too long for nothing. There's almost nothing there, but it was just really long.
Yeah, I felt like when I was playing it, we were spending a really long time on it. Does it have... Is there a particular puzzle about it?
There's some puzzle-ish stuff. The biggest puzzle in the entirety of the game is finding out where you're supposed to walk. The maps are confusing, in not in the labyrinthine way, in a way that the main path is obscure. All the paths that seem obvious to you go nowhere. I guess you could say this is a bit of an old game syndrome, but I never had this problem in KotOR 1, and I was a dummy when I played that game.
Yeah.
My brother and I called the word intelligence, because we didn't actually know that it was intelligence.
Really?
Yes.
That is so ironic.
Yes, that is very ironic, and is an indication of how much intelligence we approached the game with.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it was obvious enough where to go from the way the maps were designed. And I mean, I guess you could argue, well, then, therefore, KotOR 1 is a dummy game. But I think it's a very clear game. It's pretty clear. There's maybe not so much nuance to the plot. KotOR 1 is certainly a lot more nuanced than pretty much every other Star Wars property. Okay, I haven't read any of the novels that expand the universe, so I can't actually comment on those. But it's certainly more nuanced than the movies. Than, let's say, the canon, at least at the time. So I think KotOR 1 had enough nuance to it. The world it presented seemed a lot more realistic. The people were more complicated than most characters in Star Wars. And it handled some mature things, but, not in a way that would, make it a mature game. Which in a way is maybe handling it a bit more mature than some mature games would handle mature things. That word now has no meaning. And, but I mean, the main plot was fairly straightforward. You knew what you had to do all the time, rescue Bastila, find those galaxy maps, so on. Like, it was always a clear objective for your main plot, and every place had its own sort of subplots that were interesting, and those can get more like nuanced and complicated, but they're always, your main objectives were clear enough, and the characters were really well written. I don't think the characters in KotOR 2 are badly written. I'm just saying, like, KotOR 1 has a lot of substance to it that I feel a lot of the people overlook when they hold it up next to KotOR 2 and be like, oh, KotOR 2 is the smart one that has substance. Yeah, anyway, so with KotOR 2, starting the game, I had hope. I liked the way they expanded some of the mechanics, even though looking back, it's like, it's just more mechanics. But it made some more interesting builds, at least. They added new feats, they added new things like, I don't want to get too detailed, but they made it so that you can make a light side build that uses dark side powers if you want, which doesn't really make that much sense, but, whatever. Dark side powers are cooler than light side powers.
Yeah.
I ended up making a meathead who just, can take loads of damage and deals loads of damage. It's not even my favorite class to play. I don't know why I made that. Got so bored with my character, but boy, was he durable. So I started this game with sort of a lot of hope. I was like, this game's great. It's, in a way, nostalgia was actually helping, because I was like, this is,
it's fresh,
but it's familiar.
Yeah.
Like KotOR 1, it's basically the same as KotOR 1. The graphics are, let's say the graphics are a bit better, I think, only a little bit. And there's like some cloth physics going on with some of the robes.
Has it got any...
The robes look pretty good. Like, compared to KotOR 1 especially, the robes are a bit disappointing in KotOR 1, I think. They're mostly just, jackets. Like, KotOR 2 had the full billowing robes, which I was like, oh yeah, give me them billowing robes. Robes should billow.
Did it have any of those, what do you call them, god rays?
Probably not.
Because I know you like those god
I
rays.
love them god rays. Yeah, no, I don't think it had god rays. You don't look up in those games.
Right, yeah.
So it's not like I started off thinking, oh, this is like bad or anything. Obviously not. I mean, I love KotOR. And I never really clicked with any of the characters that much. You get them, I'd say, at a slower pace than you did in KotOR 1. At KotOR 1, you got the majority of the characters pretty early in the game, but there were some characters you got in later planets. KotOR 2, yeah, you sort of have 3 characters for quite a bit of the game. And then again, in KotOR 1, you only start off with an extra character, like one other character. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not so much the way the characters are given to you. It's just I didn't click with any of them. Probably one of the more interesting characters. You kind of have to really force his backstory out of him. And when it gets to that point with any character, I'm just like, no, I give up. I'm not going to force this person to tell me stuff.
Not now, Shepard.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that. That's just, oh, no, finish a quest, then come back. Then we bang. No, it's, I don't know, he's kind of like, oh, I'm not going to tell you. And I'm just like, well, I'm not going to force you. And I walk away. But I think for me, a lot of these sort of nuance and, well, the philosophy of the Grey Jedi stuff and like, oh, it's not just light and dark. You have to be, pragmatic and stuff. Maybe that would work if it wasn't coming from an obviously evil bitch. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for KotOR 2. Kriya, betrays you. She's actually Sith. So in that case, she's evil. And there's like, I guess that is interesting. Like, it's just the fact that you're stuck with her as your companion, even when she disagrees with every single decision you make. So I was playing the Goody Two Shoes run. I know I have to play that first before I could do anything else. When I was younger, I used to be able to play evil really easy. I don't know why. Maybe I was a psychopath as a child. But I don't know. I played evil characters really easily. And first time I played KotOR 1, I mean, I wanted lightning. I played evil, right? Right. That was, I automatically...
They got, like, grey skin and, like, funky eyes, right?
Yeah, I knew that's how I was going to do it because I wanted the lightning.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
Like in Fable, I just wanted horns.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to be bad. So much of my decisions in RPGs like KotOR and Fable back in the day, which were like the only RPGs I played, were just cosmetic based. I'm like,
yeah,
that gives me a cool thing. I'm I'm going to look cool. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I
It's
think
mostly why I played games back then. That's why I played RuneScape so much.
Unless an RPG really forces you to do well, really forces you to be good, either decisions are going to seem like inconsequential, or you're going to pick something that's going to make the game more interesting or make you look cooler.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I play as well. I'm like, if the game isn't inherently, like, if it isn't super challenging, I'm just going to pick something that sounds like it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not how I built my KotOR 2 character, but I was doing a light side run, and I really don't value light side powers well, I don't think light side powers were that interesting. There's some good passive powers that I was trying out. I never really invested in passive powers when I played KotOR 1 originally, so I was like, I'll see how this works. I'll do some passive stuff. I made quite an effective build. Like, I chained certain attacks together that really worked well, and I used almost, passive light side powers or universal and light side powers that made my character pretty much unstoppable, just not for the final boss fight, apparently. So I think my build was pretty good. Probably not the cheese build, but yeah, back to what I didn't like about Kriya as a character. So I don't dislike her as a character. I think she's an interesting character. I just think she was very abrasive if you did a light side playthrough. Playing as a light side character, and I guess this is me doing it wrong, but how was I supposed to know at the start of the game that playing as a light side character is playing the game wrong when the game rewards you for picking a side? I guess the way they did charisma in this game means you don't really need to worry about it, but forget about that, right? Off the back of KotOR 1, they still have the light side, dark side system. It still rewards you for picking one of those, unless you just want to stick to universal powers. How was I supposed to know that you're not supposed to do that, right? So it's almost like the gameplay mechanics they're using before doesn't really agree with the narrative of you need to be grey, kind of. At least this is what Kriya's trying to push you all the time. And she's not even grey. She's dark side.
She's got grey hair.
She has got grey hair. But yeah, so she's just keeps whining at me, being like, oh, I'll do the right thing. It's like, you shouldn't do the right thing. The right thing is bad for you. You don't get anything out of it. And I'm like, shut up, Kriya. Anyway, she just kept annoying me. And I already had it spoiled that she's going to betray me, but I don't even think that would have blown my mind. I probably would have been relieved if I didn't know about it. Her. Or at least so she would go away. Okay. No, I think she's an interesting character. It's just she's constantly bitching at me, so I was just like, I can't handle this. It's just, you're just constantly telling me off for doing the right thing. And like, I realize that maybe makes her a more interesting character, but I'm like, I'm just sick of it because it's like every decision. She's like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. I'm like, just shut up. I'm the main character. If you're so concerned, why don't you take charge? I guess the point is she's like your self-appointed master, even if you don't ask for it. She's just like, I'm going to be your new master. And you're like, I don't need one. She's like, I'm going to be your new master anyway. And that's her character. She's trying to turn you into something. You're like, well, you're her project, her new project. And that's inherently interesting. I just think you can do it in a not annoying way. A lot of these things in the game that I found annoying are the things you could argue, oh, well, that's because they're doing things differently. It's like, yeah, but just don't do it in an annoying way. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm...
You just don't want Star Wars to change. That's it.
No, I want Star Wars to change. I like it when things change.
I know, I'm just
don't
joking.
Make it annoying.
I'm just trying to be to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so that character aside, other characters, Aton, he's the guy you have to kind of interrogate to get anything out of, and I'm just like, I'm not doing that. Besides, I was like, he's dressed like Han Solo. He's not really a Han Solo type. There's another Han Solo type that comes up later. Not like the first game didn't have a Han Solo type. The next character you get, Bo-Dur, he's like your ex-war buddy. He's as dull as a brick wall. Yeah. So I didn't really care for him either. And then you get, most of the characters you get are just really either boring or annoying, at least to me. So I just really didn't like the cast that much. There was one character I actually found pretty interesting. But
that's the point of these BioWare games.
Yeah,
is like
BioWare-esque, I guess, because this was an Obsidian game.
But it's based on the BioWare formula.
Yeah.
Like,
the characters are supposed to be interesting. The main plot doesn't have to be complicated. And I think the main plot here wasn't overly complicated either. It's just your motivation was muddy. Like, and I think this is because Kriya is supposed to be some sort of smart talking person compelling you to do things you don't necessarily want to do. But in a game that gives you no agency over what you do for the main plot, like, that doesn't really come across. It's mainly like, I don't actually know why I'm doing anything in this game. That, I have to do stuff to progress.
Yeah.
So there was like, the main plot was you had to find the old Jedi Masters. Okay, so you're an ex-Jedi. I think at this point, people have played the game and are listening and are just doing it to get angry and like comment at me. Or maybe they're listening because they also hate KotOR 2 and feel repressed.
We should call this KotOR 2 sucks.
Yes.
That'll get the views. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was I saying?
Characters.
Yeah, okay. I don't really... I mean, like, there was maybe one character I ended up finding interesting, but by the time I realized she was an interesting character, it was like the game was over, and I was like, oh. That's another thing. Like, because it was so vague what I was doing, I constantly felt like the main plot is going to hit any second now. Yeah. Any second now, things are going to go great and ramp up for the next half of the game. Oh, the game's nearly over. Oh. So, yeah, it's like you're an exiled Jedi who lost their Force powers. You find out later that's because you became dead to the Force in like some terrible wartime thing. I don't know if you willed yourself to die to the Force or if it just happened. I can't remember too well. But yeah, you're dead to the Force. You thought the Jedi Council stripped you of your powers. That's not actually true. You're just dead to it from a thing. I guess PTSD. Anyway, so you're trying to reunite the Jedi Council. Oh yeah, the Jedi Order has also been scattered to the winds by the new Sith people that came out of nowhere. Anyway, you're trying to reunite the Jedi Council for some reason. I guess to make the Jedi Council again. I mean, that seems like a clear enough reason. But for some reason, I didn't feel like that was the motivation. Part of it was just to like ask them why they took your powers away. And then they say, oh, we didn't. You came to us without powers. Anyway, you have to go around... I got stuck on some of these planets because I just didn't know what the hell to do to progress, especially on Nar Shaddaa. Like, I just had no idea what I was doing. Yeah, anyway, so I felt a lot of that in the game where it's just like, you can't find out where you're supposed to go next. Like, I've talked to everyone, and it's like, oh no, you're supposed to talk to that mouse person in the corner in this corridor that's at the end of the map. It's like, why? Why do you put the main quest giver some obscure corner of the map?
So that you can... spend more time playing
you just run around doing nothing.
Does this happen in the opening section of the game?
No.
Okay, so I was just dumb.
Yes. No, I'm joking. The opening section of the game has its own like puzzles that you kind of have to figure out by just running around and interacting with everything until you've got all the pieces. Like,
okay,
it's frustrating, the opening part.
So
that killed my subsequent playthrough where I'm like, I'm going to do this again and I'm going to do it properly. I'm not going to go full light side. I'm going to go with whatever makes sense at the time. And then I was like, I hate this opening segment. It's so long and boring. So I stopped.
I was always like, ooh, it's a slow burn. It's like atmosphere. I'm like one of those people who thought it was smart at the time.
No, look, I'm probably wrong. I'm probably missing something big because lots of people love this game. And that's what frustrates me. I want to love this game.
Yeah.
But I don't. And the more I try to love it, the less I love it.
Yeah. But
I don't love it. So the more I dislike it.
Every time I hear a conversation about KotOR, why do I keep saying KotOR?
Yeah. KotOR.
About KotOR on the internet, it seems like the general consensus is that the second one is amazing and like the best game ever.
Yeah.
And this actually... Obsidian also made New Vegas.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people say is
the best.
The best Fallout game since the OG Fallout games.
Yeah.
By Interplay.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Do you agree with that? You don't know because you haven't played the Interplay ones.
No, I haven't played the Interplay ones. I played New Vegas when I wanted to play Fallout 3. Was closer to its release and I couldn't at the time. So I've only been able to play some of these games recently, and Skyrim has broken me for like old Bethesda games. I cannot play old Bethesda games anymore, because Skyrim has made it. Skyrim's too easy to play, even if it doesn't have as much substance. As some of the older games, it just, I don't know. It makes the older games feel bad to play in comparison. And
I think going back to Skyrim today, even that feels like not so great.
Yeah, but I think you can sort of...
But it definitely
I think
feels...
it's still easier to get lost in it.
Yeah, and like...
I
It's like as a shooter, those Fallout games suck. Like,
yeah, and I think that's always something that bothered me with the Bethesda Fallout games. Fallout 4 notwithstanding, because it seemed more shootery, but I know a lot of people had problems with how the quests work and how the character was.
I mean, the shooting is pretty good. They
Yeah,
got, like,
the shooting's
Destiny
pretty good. But
Bungie employees to help with it.
Oh, really? That makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was like, oh, everything's skill based, like as in like numbers, the skill numbers. And I like RPGs, but I don't love how they stick to dice rolling systems when they become action games, because I don't think the two things of like real-time action and dice rolling marry very well.
No.
Like it works well in D&D because that's the only thing that can work, but I don't think it works well in an action-oriented game. So for me, my biggest problem was that, you know, it wasn't a case of, oh, good, I found this gun, I can use this gun for a bit, I'm out of ammo. Oh, look, I found another kind of gun. It's more like, I'm not going to use this gun because I'm not high-leveled in it. Like, it didn't feel like it was as survival-ish as it could be. Anyway, like, that's besides the point. I played New Vegas a bit, I stopped, got bored with it. Then I was like, I'll try to play Fallout 3, played that a bit. I probably played it a bit longer, and then I also stopped. I'm like, I don't think I can play these games now, but in a post-Skyrim world.
But you have said in the past that you don't particularly like Obsidian games. What was the other Obsidian game?
I can't remember if there was another. I was saying it's a theory that I might not actually like their games, because I didn't really like New Vegas that much, which is another controversial thing to say, I guess. But
yeah, I didn't like it that much either, but I don't have any good reasons for why I didn't like it that much, and I didn't play it that much. So.
I don't think they're bad. I think they're good writers and stuff, maybe. Obviously, I mean, they're very acclaimed. I just don't know if I like their game design on a sort of subconscious level or something. Like, for me, KotOR 2 didn't feel like it was a well put together game, and that it had a troubled development, and it has a patch which aims to restore some of that, but I feel like, you know, forgetting why you're playing the game, or forgetting what you're supposed to be doing in the game, is not something you can, you know, patch in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the motivations felt cloudy at best. And like this main threat of, oh, there's these like Sith Lords somewhere. Where are they? I don't know. Are we going to defeat them? I don't know, maybe. Who knows? Like, it's kind of like most of the game feels aimless. And it's just like, oh, these sub-narratives happening. And I mean, that would be fine. I guess it's just, like I said, unclear what you're supposed to be doing, what you want. Yeah. What your character wants. There's like no motivation to do the things, and maybe I missed something. But another thing that the game does a lot, which is just frustrating, is it would sometimes force you to play as a party member by themselves. Like, it would put them in the situation and be like, play as this person now by themselves. And a lot of them were really contrived situations. So it's like, you know, why are you making me do this? Your party members suck. Like, you're at least 3 levels above them or something. And if you don't care about a particular party member and you just leave them behind all the time, you're not ready to play as them solo. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think you still had access to the group inventory and, you know, everyone's maintained at the same level kind of thing. But it was just annoying when you suddenly had to fight as a certain party member by themselves. In particular, if it's like, and one time playing as a Ton, you have to fight 2 people who are using swords, and I built them for guns, and, you know, that sucked. Yeah, that's just annoying. There was another time where they introduced a new character, a new party member, and you had to play as her straight off the bat, and she was weak. She was so weak. So, like, you literally had to, like, kite and stuff in order to play through that level. Normally, you know, that kind of thing of, like, you know, running around and kiting and making, sort of abusing the, you know, game's mechanics. That's normally something you do when you're out-leveled or leveled up badly. But this is a character you've just been given to play as. So it's not like you've even ruined the character yet, and it's almost too difficult because you're not used to them and, you know, they're weak. Maybe this game has turned me to the dark side.
So,
I mean, I only had one more thing to say, and that's
go on.
the last area is designed really badly. And
Isn't it about like a... That was very high pitched.
yeah,
Isn't it just a bunch of mountains?
it's just a bunch of mountains and these weird
Why do I
green,
remember that?
green sort of lizard men thing that you have to fight that were nowhere else in the game and make no sense in the context of this world that's been destroyed. And then there's like a Sith base where you just have to fight you're really just fighting rooms and rooms full of like really generic and weak enemies. So in that sense, it's inoffensive because you're just like, dead,
Right.
dead, just like killing all of them. It's like, whatever. These are like butter for my blade. And then you have to fight a boss character followed by the main boss. It's like one right after the other. I guess that's okay, but it's a very long, drawn-out fight, so it really takes your healing items and stuff like that.
I must have gotten to that point, if I remember it, because you certainly didn't show it to me. I don't remember those details, but I remember the planet.
Yeah, you must have nearly finished the game. I know you got to the point where Kriya betrays you.
Yeah, and I feel like, even at the time, like, I was playing that game, like, in bursts. Like, it wasn't enough to entertain me.
Yeah.
Even back then. Like, maybe it was like a pacing thing as well. In my experience, which I don't remember a lot of, I can see where you're coming from, in that it feels like a very drawn-out, directionless kind of game.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
I mean?
how I felt when I was playing it as well, yeah. Yeah, so the last place was really... And that might be because of the sort of production for the game being really messy and...
Why was
it got
messy?
cut short. I don't know. I don't know the politics behind it.
Financial
So
stuff,
I can
probably.
forgive the last area of the game being kind of bad, but
Well, they don't design games like start
they
to
really
end.
should design the end of the game and the beginning, first,
Yeah,
and the middle.
some people say it's a good idea to like start at the end of the story when writing at
Yeah.
least, and then work backwards.
So I think, if you're balancing the game out, you probably want to have some flexibility, I guess, to balance out the difficulty and stuff.
Right.
But I guess with the game, you want to have a lot of the story done. And look, I don't know professional game design. You probably want to have a lot of the story done before you even start making level,
Yeah.
I don't actually know how the pipeline works. But
With an RPG like this.
certainly with this game, it felt like the story was meant to have, probably been finished before the levels were. So you'd think that they would put a lot of attention to detail at the last bit. There's a fairly climactic thing that happens in the sort of turning point of the plot. But even then, it's like, I don't know. I think overall another problem is just everything about it. Maybe this was just because of the sort of lighting filter of the game was made to make everything kind of duller because it has a different tone, more somber tone. A lot of the worlds just felt really dull and boring, at least the way they were designed. I guess the only other thing I will say in order to, cut this off at some point, maybe the reason I thought the game kept mounting up, a lot of the new features, like new crafting features and stuff like that, kind of gave you the feeling that you had a lot more of a game left. Because I feel like I never really, not got to grips, never really used it enough to justify it being there. Like, at least I didn't feel like I needed to. And maybe this is just for people who make almost like a perfect run and use the crafting system. So maybe I should have just ignored it flat out. But it kind of felt like there was a lot more game to go based on that.
Okay.
So, I don't know. It really, to me, even though, KotOR 2 is probably about the same length. Like I said, I need to finish KotOR 1 again and then KotOR 2 again. But, yeah, it really didn't feel like the game was coming to an end when it did because I didn't feel like anything had happened. But, yeah, anyway, that's just me, apparently, and it frustrates me.
Well, let's put it out there.
Yes. If
Open
you
this
think
up as a...
I'm an idiot, please tell me why. Then maybe I'll start to enjoy the game.
All right, there it is. Thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought of this episode and what we had to say. Whether you agree or disagree and why. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.